Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks for tuning in today and buckle up because I have a firecracker here with me, and this show is going to be on point, and you're going to leave inspired and I think believing in yourself in a way you maybe don't coming into this conversation. That's how I feel when I hang around Alexa DePaolo. So, Alexa has been in the mortgage business for roughly 17 years now. She is a top producer who averages 90 million in volume every year and has done upwards of 150 million a year. So she's got some experience, and she's also an incredible dynamic speaker. She's a trainer, an educator, a strategist. She's just obsessed with helping others and brings so much energy and authenticity to everything she does, as well as actionable strategies. So I feel very confident you're going to leave this conversation ready to run towards your business in a new way. So, with no further ado, I am so glad to have you here, Alexa. I love you, and I'm so grateful we're finally getting you on the show.
Thank you. I love you too. You've been a huge inspiration to me. You know that. I adore you.
Well, let's start from a little bit of background. I mean, when we talk about numbers and things like that, sometimes people listening can feel a little bit like, "Oh, wow, that's way more," or maybe like, "No big deal. I've done that too." But at the end of the day, like sometimes the numbers can almost distract because behind that, there's always a story, right? And none of us get to achieve certain levels of external success without having our own journey of highs and lows. And I know you've had your fair share. So bring us back a little bit. Tell us about your story and the journey in the business and how it's led you to the passion you have now to serve and share with the rest of the world.
I love this question. And I've been focusing on sharing this more because I think it's important to know that the success that all of us have is so attainable. What really kicked me into gear, I was just talking to a friend about it this morning, was living on welfare with my daughter as a single mom and trying to decide if we were going to leave the lights on or if I could feed her 10 cents, 10-cent ramen noodles. I mean, it was so, we were that scarce, and trying to decide, trying to look at the weather and determine if it was warm enough outside to go with no heat, right? Or if it was if it was too cold, too hot, what were we going to be able to survive in for the night? Okay, I don't need to pay my electric bill right now. I need to get groceries tonight. And I grew up like that. And having this little baby and trying to decide if I could feed her, keep my lights on, was such an epiphany of I am not breaking the cycle. I am living on welfare. I grew up on welfare. And she kicked me into gear. Having my daughter is what forced me to want more and to really realize that there was better and there was more, and that everything that I was feeling inside of me, knowing that I was meant for something bigger, was real. And I had to do it. If I was going to do it, it was for this baby. And it changed my life. I certainly didn't think it was going to be mortgages. I wasn't a little girl hoping I was helping people with mortgages when I grew up, but it was it was such a beautiful moment to go from living on welfare to making my first six figures and going, oh my gosh, I just made $100,000. This is unreal. And then just continuing to grow and elevate from there. It was really powerful in my confidence and my love to try to help other people get there too. I mean, it just made me blow up, and I can help you. I know how to create wealth. I know how to create wealth. I'm always constantly trying to help others do that in this business and do it outside of this business. So it was a wild ride, but that's kind of how it started.
Okay, so before we go further with your journey and I'd love to eventually I want to dig into specifics like some strategies. How did you go from, 0 to 60 like that and building wealth and from welfare to wealth? I mean, that could be the name of your book, I guess. But I had a guy on my podcast many, many years ago, and he talked about being at his rock bottom as a young person and realizing he had a choice. He could be a victim or he could be victor, the
hmm
victor, and he chose to be the victor. And so I understand that sometimes desperation can affect change because I've had that, not to that extent, but in my own life. And I'm curious, what was the turning point, and how did you then go on to continue to develop your mindset to believe that you were meant for more? You mentioned that you knew deep down inside you were meant for more. Your daughter triggered this point of no return for you, which I can relate to. but there's more work to be done besides just like, okay, here I am debating whether we can have electricity to here I am, doing 150 million in volume in my mortgage career. So can you take us down the journey of your mindset development? Because I know you talk a lot now and help others with developing mindset. What does that look like for you then? And how do you convey that to others now?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a deep question. I think that what happened was you talk about this often, connecting the dots when you're looking behind. There was a lot of moments for me when looking back, I realized, oh, I survived that. I survived that. That was really bad, right? I was being abused, and I survived it. So this isn't a big deal. I can get through this. I can get through this. And then all of those hard moments that we push through created like you continue to level up. It continues to give you the confidence of, oh my gosh, I just survived something a year ago I didn't think I was going to be able to survive, and I'm on the other side of it. So it is just get through today. Just get through today. Oh, every day there should be some sort of forward movement. And I say this a lot to my team is if you're not growing and learning, you are just dying. And I believe that to my core. So every day I just am going to do something forward movement. Even if my forward movement today is much smaller than my forward movement yesterday, I just need to take one step today. Tomorrow I can take 10 steps, but today it's just one. But when you sit in that victim's mindset, you become stagnant. And I talk about when you surround yourself with mediocrity, you will just shrink to match that energy. So stop surrounding yourself with that. Stop listening to the negativity. Protect what you put into your brain. It needs to be constantly realizing that you're not the only one that survived something difficult, and you are not less than anybody else who is continuing to elevate. They just believe in themselves enough to push forward and to persevere. And that's what makes success happen. It is not the college degrees. It's not the smartest person in the room. It's who's able to work the hardest and persevere more. It was that mindset.
So then what? I mean, this is not an easy industry. I'm sure you've had your fair share of peaks and valleys, but talk us through the breakthrough because at some point I do believe that those who end up operating at a high level as a top producer, they have some breakthrough moment where they find their voice, they find themselves. And it's you being authentically you and your heart to serve that I know attracts you, the kind of opportunities that you've had. What was that breakthrough like for you? Like the shifting moments?
I had a couple of moments with some, and you know a little bit about this after knowing me the last few years, was I had enough people telling me to just be quiet and stay small. And I thought, well, that's how you stay successful. And the more that became unnatural to me and the more me that continued to come out, the more opportunities continued to present themselves, which was again just another one of those dots connecting itself, more proof in the pudding of no, I'm attracting people that are nothing like me because I'm not acting like me. I'm not being authentic to me. And this be quiet, stay small command that I was taught, right, by unfortunately male leaders at this time. It's not always men, but at this time it was male leadership. And I realized, oh, I don't need to be small. What makes me special is me. And whether that's big or that's loud or it's just I have to show up. And that's when business really continued to flow, and certain relationships ended because of it, but those relationships were meant to be. They were being developed off of a superficial platform anyhow. So those relationships dying off was just another blessing for me. And then again, like I said, it was just more proof that continue to be you, because that's when you're going to make the best relationships and the most powerful ones. And that's when the real you can shine bright. And I was actually able to start helping people in this business, and not just in my mortgage world, but in people who were people in real estate, people in the lending world, not just my clients. I was really able to show up for people in a deeper way.
In all of this, there's clearly a common theme of your commitment to learn, to grow, to persevere, and like you said earlier, to work hard and to continue to show up because the only difference between us and those experiencing what we want is that it was the determination, the decisiveness, the commitment to persevere in spite of all of the adversity that we will certainly experience. And you mentioned earlier about continue to level up as you go, right? Something that came up the other day on one of our group coaching calls was around this really cool analogy that I loved about how our journey through life is like a mountain that we're climbing. But you could be climbing a mountain and you can arrive at a valley. And when you find yourself in the valley of what maybe feels like darkness or despair, the good thing to remember is you're still at a higher elevation than you were when you started. So the
Mm-hmm.
idea there is to not stay in that valley, but to continue to persevere because there's growth on the horizon. What are some of the valleys that you've experienced in your journey? Is there anything worth sharing that, could inspire somebody who's listening who might feel like they're in a valley right now?
There's so many bumps in the road, right? I mean, even in this industry, you're constantly learning and shifting, guidelines are changing, contracts are constantly changing. And I think it's really easy to fall flat on your face and feel like you're just the only one failing, and right, which is those valleys. But I part of that, I'm going to go back to the proximity, the people you're surrounding yourself with. When I'm authentically showing up with my failures or my falling flat on my face, or when I came to you and said, hey, I'm dealing with a really tough situation leaving this company and I need some guidance, because I was open and honest with that, I was able to get validation that you're not alone. This happens all the time. This is just what makes you even more powerful because you're a threat to somebody else. So this is amazing for you. Like all of that constant validation of, okay, I don't need to hide and feel shame and anything. We are all just human. We are all, I say like we're all just a bunch of goobers trying to figure life out. So why not just do it together? And when I remind myself of that, and then I'm openly talking about my struggles, you continue again, it's another elevation for you. And those are those valleys. So when I feel like I'm falling flat on my face, it's my first sign to connect with somebody who's on a similar playing field as you, and talk about this because they've either been through it and they overcame it, or they're going through it right now and you need a buddy in this. But one way or another, you're going to get some guidance that's going to help pull you through. So that's really what it was all about for me. And just knowing, I'm just another goober trying to figure life out, so I don't need to feel so important. This is
Well,
okay.
goober,
This
goober to
isn't the
goober,
end.
this is making me laugh because I was on another podcast this morning and they asked me a question about how do you get unstuck, right? Because I think this is a really important topic and something I had a conversation with a leader in an organization that I invest to be a part of, a mastermind I'm a part of. And I said, when you shared your struggles that day, I thought it was really important, and I think it's important for the entire community to hear that the person standing up on the stage who
Mm-hmm.
is presenting as massively successful and it seems like it's easy for you and that you've got it all figured out, that you too go through these valleys, and that
Mm-hmm.
the ability and having the tools and the determination, right, to recognize when we're going downhill and not be in shame and not be
Mm-hmm.
afraid to ask for help at that time. And so she said, how do you get unstuck when I'm stuck? And I was like, I instantly start hanging around people that are what I consider ahead of me in the game or on the
Mm-hmm.
same journey as me. It was like a verbatim answer that the first thing I do when I feel like I'm going downhill is I call someone. And you know what? I often will call someone who I think is like where I feel the imposter syndrome, where I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this person is such a badass and surely they've never been through this really
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing thing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? This like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
ashamed of how I got here again. How did I get here again? And inevitably they'll be like, girl,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you a thing about the times that I've found
Yeah.
myself in a valley. And it's like, it's so humbling and valid, like to your point, validating.
Yeah, you'll never find anybody if you do all the research, you're never going to find somebody who's wildly successful that has not fallen flat on their face, gone bankrupt, dealt with a lawsuit, right? They've all, what from the outside looking in might look as a failure, but from the inside, when you've overcome it and you're looking backwards, you go, oh, that was just another really cool lesson. And now I know how to do it better next time. And now I know how to avoid it. Or it was just a valley in the journey. It was just a little blip and we worked through it because again, we have all survived worse. we have survived so much worse than, my business falling short momentarily. I
Yeah.
always refer to Jeff Bezos as an example, regardless of how we feel about Jeff Bezos, is he's taken over the world. But what if he stopped 10 years prior or 5 years prior? A lot of us are older than Amazon. I remember when he started selling books online, you still see pictures of him when he was just in that little garage with that sign that said Amazon on the wall. But now I know that there's some good and bad that has come with Amazon, but people are going out of business because he overcame. I mean, he's overcome so much, but everyone laughed at him in the beginning. No one's going to buy anything online. We'll go to Barnes and Noble to get a book. Why would we buy a book online? But if he would have stopped 1 year too soon, 5 years too soon, 10 years too soon, like, I'm sure he faced a lot of doubt. I'm sure he faced a lot of people who said he wasn't going to do it. He was crazy. And I believe this in any industry. Anyone who's overcome massive success has dealt with all of the ups and downs. So I promise he's not smarter than we are. He just believed in himself,
I literally just commented on some random Instagram post that somebody had that said that failure is a requisite to success, that there's nobody that has achieved high levels of success. And oftentimes when I'm in a valley, I think to myself, well, until I'm dead, there's always more to do. There's always, there's always only one way to go but up.
Yeah, if you're failing, it means you're doing something big. So that's pretty cool because you don't fail when you're doing nothing.
Good point. Okay, so let's bring it down to the tactical level. I mean, you have been thriving in the mortgage business during some pretty challenging times, economically speaking, the market, the rates, all the things. Can you talk us through, what did your business look like before, maybe when it was easy and it was raining deals, and how did that shift when we started facing external circumstances we can't control? Talk us through that process for you.
You were so influential during this time for me as well, because I remember the first time I ever heard you talked on when you are booming in business and you're rolling in it and you feel so drained and so wiped out, and then business crashes and burns and you feel so wiped out and so drained. And the experience was so similar. And I resonated so deeply with that. But I also had to have a realization that it was my ego that was impacting me really negatively, because going from 150 million to 25 million, I thought, oh, I failed. I have absolutely failed. And how could I have lost this much business? And it's your fault. How could you have let it fall like this? But then again, closing out 2023 and looking back and going, oh, I closed 25 million. I did okay. And I thought I was going to get a few months off. I thought I would enjoy a few months off with that same scarcity. The poor single mom in me that sometimes I forget I'm not anymore was like, well, what if you can't eat tomorrow? What if you can't pay the electrical bill tomorrow? You better grind, 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 grind. But both of those, I had no time with my kids in either environment when business was falling out of the sky and, you were digging to find any deal that you could. But again, it was you. It was being on stage with you, not on stage with you, listening to you on stage talk about how you've got to figure out who you are in this business and you've got to reprioritize and kind of reignite yourself, and the business will continue to come. But it was such a blessing for me to be in that moment. And again, I took that as just a really hard lesson learned, and it turned into something beautiful. I realized that I was still okay. I've survived worse than this, and I'm still able to pay my bills. I'm good. You got this. And now I have more time with my kids. This is what I asked for. I prayed for more time. I prayed for a break. And then when I got it, I wasn't appreciative of it. That's so crazy. Right. And then again, there was another day. I know I've mentioned this to you in the past, but I was listening to one of your podcasts. There was a guy who mentions we are just out of practice of working our business because business came very easily to us and we didn't have to proactively work for it. So that was also another, that kind of reignited me again to, oh, he was able to put words to exactly what I was feeling. I'm out of practice. This feels miserable to drum up business again. My phone's not ringing off the hook. And it's hard to go actively think about the next thing I need to do to market myself and my business. But once I was able to associate words with it and identify exactly what was going on, it was relieving. Oh, that's exactly what the issue is. So just buckle down, do the work, get your name back out there with your clients. And What can you do to take care of them? When rates went up, everyone's credit card interest rates went up. So there are people at 6 and 7% rates still, or 30% credit card rates. Like, what can you do to take care of people? Help them do tax appeals, get them in touch with people who do the property tax appeals so they can save on their taxes, get people in touch with new insurance reps if they need to save on their insurance premiums. Like, step out, put value out there to your clients and realtors, and just stay in touch with people. And then again, that helping, which I like to do very naturally, the helping people reignited me. And then and then my business almost doubled rolling into 2024. And it was because I just had to reset my thought process. You're out of practice. Remember that you're here to serve, and just show up and give some value, and business will come. And that was it. It was just remembering what I do it for. And it wasn't for my ego. It wasn't because I was closing $150 million. That was just really nice. But I did it for the people. I did it to take care of them, and trying to go back to that fundamental guideline was really important for me.
I love this so much. And it's a very common theme that's been weaving in and out of some of our more recent podcast guests that are in the business on the real estate side or the mortgage side, and they've been having those best years ever, or just creating exponential growth, right? Like, you had a super down year. It could have easily left you in a funk that left you feeling once again like a victim, and instead you made a decision and a commitment to re-engage, to find ways to be of value to people. And that is the common thread, is that, like, everybody has all this stories and resistance around why I don't want to pick up the phone, because I don't want to have to ask them about real estate, and they don't need to move right now, and they have a rate of 2.75, and all that stuff is a you problem. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just go be of value, get into conversation. And honest to God, time and again, probably in just the last few weeks, I've had multiple interviews with both agents and lenders who will say this thread just runs through all these conversations, massive amounts of conversation, find a way to be of value. That's it.
Correct. And that's
Like,
it. What's interesting to hear people when they're complaining about the market is, again, you're not protecting your brain if you're believing in that, because my brain doesn't know the difference. If I say the market sucks or I say the market's good, I'm just going to believe whichever narrative I tell myself every day. And I was just doing an interview earlier today talking on this, which was, if I believe that everything is bad, if I believe I'm going to fail, if I believe I'm not smart enough, I'm going to make sure that comes true, right? Because that's my mindset. That's my brain telling me, my truth that I've created, the narrative. And if you tell yourself, no, the market's great, there's always something to be done, you're going to just persevere that. Someone is always buying. Someone is always wanting to be a landlord. Wealth is never lost on the market. It's always just transition. So just follow the wealth. Wealth is never just disappearing. It just transfers. So pivot and readjust your focus. What am I focusing on now? Because sometimes it's reverse mortgages, sometimes it's first-time home buyers. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's land loans, it's new construction loans, but someone is always doing something with real estate. And what's interesting when you bring up the 275, I've had a lot of people complain about this too in the lender world. Rates are 275, they don't need the refinance. Yeah, but their interest rates on their credit cards are 30% and they're drowning. So if I were to refinance them, we have multiple people doing this right now. We have multiple people refinancing into 6% interest rates out of their 275 because they're saving over $1,000 a month. A lot of us would love to save over $1,000 a month, but when you run the numbers and you show up and say, I don't care what you do. You refinancing isn't going to impact me, but is there any savings to be had to help value you and just give you more financial freedom? And being able to wipe people's debt out in their credit card just by resetting an interest rate, which, by the way, you can also write off on your tax returns. Can't write the credit card interest rates off on your tax returns, but that mortgage rate you can. By resetting that and giving someone almost $1,500 a month in savings is insane. It's a no-brainer for most people. And 6% is still a really low rate. 7% is still fairly low in comparison to some of these credit cards. And when you run the amount of interest that you're paying on just $15,000 on a credit card at 25% interest, it's over six figures that you pay in interest. So why not put it into the mortgage? And it's not compounding interest. I can write it off on my taxes. Like, that's what the asset is there for. It's to protect us when we need it. And I think that is just an insane limiting belief, to think that just because someone's in a 2% rate doesn't mean you can't help them.
Again, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And not to mention the incredible opportunities that exist just within the home equity alone. I mean, this is such an
Mhm.
incredible time for people to consider investing in real estate
Yeah.
now. If you can find something that even
Mhm.
cash flows or break even, but now you've got two worker bees, or you've got however many worker
Mhm.
bees that are going to be simultaneously appreciating, and you've
Mhm.
got access to the cash in the equity to
Mhm.
be able to do that. I mean, yeah, you're right.
It's a
Yes.
tool. I pick it up when I need it. I pick up the hammer when I need it, and I use it as a tool to help me with the projects I need help with. And that's what mortgages are, right? That's what owning a house is. It's just that's what money is in general. It's just a tool. And when you're slaving away to the money, would you ever be a slave to a hammer or a wrench? No. So don't be a slave to the dollar. Let it work for you. And mortgages is an incredible asset to do so.
I love it. Well, I want to respect your time. We could obviously go on for hours as we sometimes do, but our listeners may have something to do today. So
Yeah.
if folks want to get a hold of you or follow you, where are the best ways to do so? Or maybe they want to book you for a speaking engagement, because I know you do incredible speaking on stages and teaching strategy to the real estate world. So what are all the ways that they can find you and follow you?
Yeah, so Instagram is the Alexa DePaolo, and my email address is alexa@alexadepaulo.com. Those are always going to be the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alexa,
Thank
for sharing
you.
your time and your inspiration with us today.
Thank you for having me. Have a good one.
And to all my listeners out there, what is going on? How much did you love that conversation with Alexa? I know you did. And if you are enjoying this content, please stop what you're doing and leave a 5-star review wherever you're consuming it. It's so powerful. It helps us continue to attract amazing guests like Alexa, and helps this content get found so more people out there can believe in and go about building a life you don't need a vacation from. I love you. I appreciate you. And we will see you next time.